Good morning, friends. Welcome to the third weekly lecture of Samachar Manthan. In this week, we will be discussing issues from 18 to 24 June. So, like the earlier lectures, we'll start the lecture with mains issues and then we will discuss prelims issues. And like the previous lecture, the issues related to science and environment will be taken by Rakesh sir, and rest of the issues will be taken by me. So, first issue for mains is why so few women work in India. So, this has been a hot topic for like many years, and this week there were two articles written in Live Mint and in Huffington Post, which talked about the report about how the number of women who are working in India, the number have been decreasing over the years. So between 2004 and 2011, India witnessed highest or one of the highest economic growth since independence. Even after that, the share of women in the total workforce or total labor force it decreased significantly over these 7 years. So first of all, we'll discuss the reasons why there are so few women who work, and then we will look at some of the solutions how the situation can be improved. So let's look at the reasons first. First reason, as you all know, is patriarchy. So in India, there are some jobs because of patriarchal social norms. There are some works which are reserved for the ladies, and generally the men are not involved in that. So these works include in rural areas the work of collecting firewood, collecting water. All these work are done by the woman, and it spends a lot of time. It takes a lot of time of women to do this task. Therefore, there is very less time for them, or they have no option left to work, because when you kind of consume 3 4 hours a day in doing this, then definitely you will have no time left for doing some productive work. In urban areas, thanks to the growth of nuclear families, the responsibility of child caring is with women. And since she has to take care of the child, as it is considered as solely a feminine responsibility, therefore we are witnessing or we are seeing so less the women who are working in India. Third reason or third point within patriarchy is socio religious reasons. So, in many parts of India and many communities, it is considered that women should not work. Her job is to get married and have children, and her job is to be devoted to her husband, to her child, to her parents. That is her all life. Like her life is all about that only. So therefore, they have. I mean, there was this survey by NSSO which says that a large amount of women said that because of social religious reasons we don't work, and in these communities even the women who are educated, even they don't work because education is being considered. I mean, the parents try to educate their daughter in order to get a better educated and well settled group. That is why they educate their child. So the purpose of education is not to get them do working, or not to do, I mean, not to get her work, but the only purpose of educating her is to find a suitable, well groomed, well settled groom for him. So because generally nowadays it is preferred by men that their bride should be well educated. So that is why they are educating them. Second reason why there are so few women working is economic theory or economic model. So there is this U-shaped curve of female participation in the labor force. And it says that when our economy is very poor, you will find a lot of girls, a lot of women who are participating in the workforce, who are part of the labor force. So this is, I mean, this can be income. Sorry, this can be participation of women, and this can be the income. So in the initial phase, there is high participation of women because there is low income. Because of lack of income, the women are forced to do menial jobs. They are forced to, support their husband. This can be proved by seeing the Indian villages. All the data, all the stats show that uh, women in rural areas, they work more than the women in urban areas, because the economic condition in rural India is really bad, and because they are forced to support their husband, they are forced to earn extra so that they can feed their family. So this happened with India also. When India, after independence, or in last 3 4 decades, when India was more poorer, there were more number of women who were working. But now India is at the U phase. So it says that during when you are very, very underdeveloped, the participation of women would be low. When the country develops little bit, when it has a mediocre state of development, the share of women in workforce decreases. And then when after a country is recognized highly developed, or what you call is developed, then again the share of the women in workforce increases. So according to the experts, India is at the declining phase. We are at the mediocre phase. We are neither underdeveloped nor we are highly developed. So with increase in education, this is a third kind of reason why there are decline in the uh, women working, is that with increase in education and increase in income, many of the women who were doing menial jobs, who were doing kind of a unskilled blue collar jobs, they have started quitting their jobs. They believe that now that their husband is earning really well, we don't need to do these menial jobs. Second reason is that because a lot of women are undergoing higher education, therefore they are looking for a better job. They are looking for a white collar job. So since they are in colleges, they are not working, and that is also the reason why we have decline in the women participation in the labor force. So when we talk of the third reason, which is rise in income and rise in uh, education, which we have almost explained. See, the problem is that as more and more women are doing education, they will not do these menial jobs, right? And the white collar jobs are not being created in the economy. So these women who are educating, they can't do the menial jobs, and the white collar jobs is not being created for them. Therefore, they don't work. Even after education, they don't work. Earlier, they used to work because they had no option. They had to work because they could do the menial jobs. But now, after education, I mean, it takes guts to sell pakoras after being a master or being a PhD. So therefore, they will not do these menial jobs, and the white collar jobs are not being created. That is why there is reduction in the participation of women. Fourth reason why there is a lack of participation is lack of jobs, lack of availability of jobs. So, as you know that in agriculture, most of the women are employed. We are witnessing what we call as feminization of agriculture. But if you would be reading data, you would have seen that in last 15 years, millions of people have left agriculture and they have shifted towards industries and services sector. And since there are decline of jobs in agriculture, and since agriculture is the main provider of job to the women, we are witnessing decline in the participation of women in the workforce. And the last important reason why there's a decline is because of lack of safety and security. So in India, as you know, the public transport, they don't work all night, they work till 10 or 11. You have the environment, we have cases of sexual harassment at workplace in many offices. We have been, so because of these reasons, parents don't they are not comfortable to send their daughters to work. So how could we increase the participation of women? Well, one reason is to, which is a normal reason, is to uh, provide them with skills which are required by the industry. Second reason or second step which we can take, these are some innovative steps, that we should have a 10-year extra window for women in all the government jobs. So suppose if for IAS the age limit is 32 years, for women we should keep it at 40 years. This is because in 20s, which is the upper limit for most of the government jobs, the women have to be a lot of things. They have to do marriage, they have to have a child, and because of this disturbance, they have less time for studying, for preparing for these exams. Therefore, the window or there should be age relaxation for the women in all government jobs. Next is there should be family friendly workplaces. Which means that in the offices there should be proper facility of a nursing room, of a crèche, so that even the woman with small child, they can work, they don't have to take leave, because if there will be crèche, at least in the organized sector we could have that. In a crèche, she can leave her children, and in the nursing room she can breastfeed her children. So that will also provide, or that will go a long way in incentivizing the woman to work. Next is mandatory sabbaticals. So there should be option in at least the organized sector where the company gives mandatory sabbatical to the women employees during their pregnancy, or during, if there is, if she wants 1 or 2 years to take care of her child, and after 1 or 2 years she can rejoin the organization. See, the problem which happens is that usually the women quit the jobs, and after 1 2 years they don't get placement anywhere. So this will make her future secure, where okay, you take a unpaid leave for 1 or 2 years, take care of your child. After 1 or 2 years you come back to our nation and start from the post you left. So this is also one important solution which can be implemented. Next is there should be tax incentives. So this could be provided to those organizations who employ at least one third women. Employees who are employing one third women could be given uh, a tax incentive. This will incentivize them to hire more women. Next is cultural campaign. We should create awareness in the society that childbearing is not just a responsibility of women. The men should also get involved in that, and jointly they should take care of the child. And for this, one very important provision which could be implemented is giving paternity. See, problem is that since the woman gets maternity leave, and it now with this act it is necessary, the companies they are not very much interested in hiring women because they feel that after 2 3 4 years she'll get married, she'll have child, and then we will have to pay her, paid leave during her kind of pregnancy. And that is why let's hire men, because men will not have that problem. If we will have paternity leave even for the men, then to the men also they have to pay that. So in that case there will be no, I mean, it will not be beneficial for them to hire men, because with men also they will have to bear the same expense. Next is safety and security. So this is also a very important thing which you should do, because uh, safety, I mean, this is the reason why many women don't work. So we should have public transport which should work the whole night. Also we should ensure that sexual harassment act at the workplace act is properly implemented. Next is accommodation, providing accommodation. So a lot of women don't work because the offices are very very far. Suppose you are living in Noida and you get a job in Gurgaon, you have a family in Noida, you have to commute from Noida to Gurgaon every day, which is very far. So it is better that the employer should provide them accommodation in Gurgaon itself. That will motivate them to work. So these are some of the steps which you can take. You can always add on. There cannot be any. I mean, there are n number of solutions to this problem. You can all, and I expect you people to, when I ask you question on this, I expect you to go beyond this notes which I have provided or this lecture which I have provided, and provide some innovative solutions. I will give more marks to those people who will provide some innovative solutions outside the notes and the lecture, because these are general topics. You can always think about more innovative solutions. Let's move to the next topic, which is again op-ed in Indian Express, I think, which was the cost of missing women in Indian politics. So a lot of topics related to women, and women itself is very very important topic for both your GS paper and your essay paper. Generally, one or two questions are asked every year on each related to women. The cost of missing women in Indian politics. So just like very less women work, We also have very less elected politicians who are women. So, according to the data or according to the stats, in Lok Sabha, we have just 12% women, and the number increased from 4.5% since the first Lok Sabha. It's highly dismal. It's more dismal when you think in that way that even Pakistan has 21% women MPs. Not just Pakistan, even Nepal has more representation of women. Bangladesh has more representation of women. Even Afghanistan has more representation of women. So therefore, it is really dismal when you look at the picture of 12%. Even in the Rajya Sabha, the number is somewhere around 11-12%. So why do we? I mean, why do we need more participation of women in politics? Why do we need not just women? Why do we need more participation of any group in politics, not just women, any disadvantaged section like minorities, SC, ST? Why do we need that? So let's look into that aspect. So B.R. Ambedkar, when he was fighting for the rights of Dalits, he said very important thing that it is the political progress, it is the political power which is key to all the social progress. So he believed that we should not waste our time in temple entry and all these futile things, burning of Manusmriti. It will not take us anywhere. We should focus on attaining political power, because once we will get political power, we will be able to we will be the masters ourselves. So we will be able to bring social reform, we will be able to bring land reform, we will be able to bring economic reforms. Therefore he said that political power is a must for any group to be empowered. So first reason why we need, or what is the effect, it is called as the reporting channel effect. So it says that observing a member of their own group in charge of a public office changes attitude and infuses confidence in the minority group. See, when Barack Obama became the president of USA, and it actually brought a sense of empowerment and confidence among the black people in USA. Because before him, and I was reading one article a few years back in which it said that the black people did not went to the offices, government offices, to seek services. They did not went to the police stations to register their case. But uh, with Obama as a president, it instilled confidence, it instilled faith in them towards the system. So it significantly increased the black people going to police station to register FIRs, going to the government office seeking welfare services, because they kind of, before that, they did not consider US as their country. They thought it's a kind of a, we are considered as a second grade citizens, and they had no faith in the justice, in the law enforcement agency, in the development agency. But once they see their people from their race becoming the most powerful person of that country, they develop that faith. Same can be taken for India. In India, in UP, in Uttar Pradesh, the Dalits did the same. They did not had faith. They did not had faith to go to the police station for any of the crimes done against them. But when Mayawati came to power, though she did not do a lot for them, but it instilled a faith among Dalits that a woman and a person from our caste is the most powerful person of the state, the master of the state. So therefore, it will definitely mean that the people in the police station will listen to our grievances, and that significantly increased the the data on SC crimes, because before that uh, the crimes went unregistered, right? But with her in power, the crime was registered, and that reflected in the significant increase in the uh, crime against the Dalits. Second reason or second effect is increase in the responsiveness of the officials towards the pleas of the disadvantaged group, and this is called as recording effect. So when people from my community will be there, if suppose there is a, a Muslim police officer who is in charge of a district, and there will be riots. Definitely, because in India it is considered, and many reports have mentioned that in the riots, generally the police is biased towards the minority sections, and they are more harshly treated. But if a Muslim would have been the SP of a district, definitely he will ensure that nobody's he could favor his community also. That is in different case, but in most likelihood he will ensure that the Muslims are not harshly treated. They're not kind of persecuted, for being Muslims. So that is also one important factor of uh, representation, or what you call this recording effect. Third is the knock-on effect, knock-on economic effect. And it means that with greater political representation, it generally leads to economic empowerment of that disadvantaged community. So in India's case, what are the factors why we have low women representation? So first reason is that the political parties in India, they don't follow the provision in their constitution where they reserve the seats for the women in the different wings of the party. So indifference of political parties, because see, a lot of parties say that we are very pro women and everything, but why don't they give tickets? Why don't they give 33% tickets to the women? If you give 33% tickets, then there will be no need of reservation, right? Second reason is lack of education and leadership training. See, first of all, there is lack of education, which means that the women are not really, they don't are much aware of how things go, how things are done. Second is leadership training. They hardly have any leadership training. It's tough for them to enter a political force. And the third very important reason is social norms and patriarchy. See, to be in politics, you will have to work 24/7. You sometimes you work till 12 or 1 in the night. In India, the woman cannot do that. Second reason is that when you win an election, see, before winning a simple MLA election, you have to strengthen your networking in your constituency. For that, you have to work till very night. You have to meet, you have to go to parties, shadis and everything. You have to do this networking in India because of patriarchal norms, because of social norms. Women are not expected to be out till late. So and plus they are not, it's not considered good for the woman to be in company of a lot of males, right? Therefore uh, there are less chances of woman candidates to winning the election, because not many people know about them. If there is one guy who is a male, who travels, who works 16 hours a day, who attends every marriage function, every death function, everything, he will be in a better position to win the election because people know him. But a woman candidate would not do the same thing, and that is why she has less chances of winning. And this is because of lack of winnability, the political parties don't give much ticket to them, because they know that if we give more tickets to women, most of them will lose the elections, right? And one more thing is that because of patriarchy, the male candidates, they generally don't vote for the women candidates because they consider them to be inferior. They consider them to be, there are not many examples of politicians like Sushma Swaraj or Sumitra Mahajan who have been constituently or who have been consecutively winning the elections. Generally the men, the especially the traditional men in India, they consider the women to be very inferior, and they consider them to be incompetent, and that is why they are more unlikely to win. And lastly, because there is no reservation of seats in the parliament. Let's move to the next, which is the way forward. First way forward is that we should definitely reserve seats, 33% seats in Lok Sabha or in the parliament and the state legislature. Secondly, we could adopt some innovative solutions. So there is this system of zipper system in countries like Sweden, Philippines. So what they do is that in these countries they have proportional representation, which means they nominate kind of candidates, and the parties winning the votes get the adequate number of seats. So what they do in this zipper system is, if there are three candidates, they ensure that one will be women. So men, women, men, women, men. That is how they give tickets to the candidates. So in this case, at least 1/3 of the senators would be women. So in some countries it is mandatory, this system is mandatory. In some it is optional, and it is kind of a convention where all the political parties do that. Third thing which we can do is focusing on education and leadership training to familiarize the women with local governance. And lastly, creating awareness among the society, where especially the men would think that a woman could be a better candidate, and also it will lead to the family allowing their daughters to openly campaign and work for 16 hours. So for that you would require awareness. You will have to show examples of politicians like Indira Gandhi, Sushma Swaraj, people who have, the women who have succeeded in achieving something. So if you will give them examples of them, then probably it could convince the patriarchal families to allow their daughters or their sisters or their wives to openly give more time to these politics. So ends the second issue. Let's move to the third issue, which is why rupees is falling. So as you know, you must have been reading newspapers that rupee has touched 69, and most probability it will touch 70 in few days, and it can reach up to 73, 74. In that way, where it would stop. So why has rupee been increasing? There are 3-4 main reasons. You should know that. because without knowing, you would just read the news without knowing the context why it is happening. First is rise in the crude oil prices. And why is crude oil prices rising? Well, because of two main reasons. Firstly, Iran sanction. So US has finally said that we will ensure that Iran is not allowed to sell its oil, and it also has advised the countries like India and other to stop buying oil from Iran, and that has led to shortage of supply in the market, right? And that has increased the price of the oil. Second, and because Iran is a big supplier of oil to India and other countries also. Second reason is that OPEC countries have decided that they will restrict the output now. Because the reason why oil was the price of oil was so less was because there was oversupply of oil in the market. So these OPEC countries have decided that now they will reduce the output in order to ensure the price of oil increases, in order for them to have or to appropriate more profit. Now, how is it leading to weakening of rupee? Well, because India imports 70% of its oil from abroad. So, increase in the crude oil prices is increasing the import bill of India, leading to weakening of rupee. Second reason why rupee is falling is capital outflow. Sorry, not the capital output, capital outflows. So, in last few years, India was, whenever there was any deficit in the current account, it was always compensated with capital inflow from the abroad. So as you know that current account and capital account, I have actually discussed in the last lecture, so I will not repeat it again. The problem is that in India, this year there is serious reduction of capital inflow. It is actually India is witnessing capital outflow from India, and the reason behind that is rise in interest rate in USA. And as I have discussed in the last lecture itself, the treasury bonds of USA are considered as the safest asset in the world. Therefore, when the interest rate will increase in USA, it would motivate the investors to transfer their investment from India and other emerging economies to USA, where they will get at least safe returns. Second reason why we are witnessing capital outflow is because of uncertainty. There is uncertainty everywhere in the prospects of growth of emerging economies. That is also leading to outflow. Third reason is that not just we are witnessing capital outflows, the FDI inflow to India is also reduced. So the all kind of combination of all of them is leading to weakening of rupee. Third reason why rupee is weakening is because of trade war rhetoric. So what is trade war? Trade war is basically when two countries try to reduce the trade with each other by imposing either tariffs or import quota, etc., etc. So idea behind trade war is that okay, we will try to hurt your exporters, and in return that country will hurt their exporters. So there is a trade war rhetoric going on between USA and China, where USA has imposed tariffs and import quotas on Chinese goods. So Donald Trump, as you know, is following his America First policy, that it is our main focus should be on improving the lives of Americans, and many American producers over the last 1 or 2 decades have been hurt because of cheaper imports from China. So the USA has imposed tariffs and import quotas on Chinese goods. In return, China is saying that we will stop buying the US treasury bonds, and we will do the same with the US exports. So this is creating uncertainty among the investors, and especially the emerging economy investors, and that is motivating them to take back their investment from India to the more safer developed countries. So this is the reason why rupee is weakening. That's the third topic. Let's move to the fourth topic, which is GST, a buoyant force. So GST, now that GST has completed 1 year of its implementation, now the question we will ask is, what are the or what are the kind of areas, or what are the findings we have after 1 years of GST implementation? So the data released by the government and many expert agencies say that three things have happened after GST has been um, implemented. First thing is, or first important finding is, aggregate revenues are highly buoyant. What do we mean by buoyant? So, what do you mean by tax buoyancy? So, a tax can be called as a buoyant tax whose tax revenue increases when, or it increases at a faster pace than the GDP growth or the economic growth. So, suppose uh, tax revenue collection increases much more than the GDP growth, then the tax can be called as a buoyant tax, because tax rates have not increased. Tax rates remain same, but tax revenue, or the revenue from the tax, or tax revenue has increased at a faster pace than the GDP growth or the economic growth. If the tax shows that, it can be called as a buoyant tax, or tax is a buoyant tax. If it does not show that, or if it say, if tax revenue or the increase in tax revenue is less than the GDP growth, then we can say that the tax is not buoyant. So when we talk of GST, the first finding is that there is an increase, or there is a revenue growth of 11.9% from last fiscal to this fiscal in the indirect tax collection, which is higher than the GDP growth, and therefore we can say that GST till now can be considered as a buoyant tax, which is good, because our tax should be buoyant. Second finding is that that compensation requirements are minimal. So when GST was being implemented, there was this, a lot of economists have raised concerns that center will have to compensate a lot of money in few years when these states will face loss in their revenue. But the data of GST shows that most of the states or almost all of the states have seen their revenue grow by almost 15 or almost 14%, which means there are very few states which have witnessed reduction in the revenue than the pre-GST in the or in comparison to the pre-GST era. So therefore, the compensation which the center will give to the state would be very less because it's not required. You will only compensate a state when he can show you that after GST his revenue or his revenue collection has decreased. But when states have witnessed increase of 14%, then there will be no need of center giving compensation to the state, and this will give boost to the center fiscal health, because generally the experts were saying that center will have to kind of compensate to the states a large amount, and that will adversely affect the fiscal health of the central government. But this fear has been misplaced, which can be seen from this data. Next is that GST is boosting the revenue of the consuming states. So this is the third finding, which is that the consumption states or the consuming states like UP, Rajasthan, MP, Delhi, Kerala, West Bengal have indeed increased their post GST shares. So when we talk of total GST share of all the states, the share of these states have increased overall, right? So this report has suggested further reforms which include simplifying the rate structure, widening the base to include currently exempted sectors, and streamlining the procedures for filing and refunds. Let's move to the fifth issue, which is again a very, very important op-ed which was there in the Live Mint. The name of the op-ed was Countering China in the Indo-Pacific. So recently, India, Prime Minister Modi went for Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore. Shangri-La Dialogue is an annual event in the Shangri-La Hotel of Singapore, where head of states and defense ministers of many countries meet for a dialogue on security and other issues concerning the region. So in this Shangri-La dialogue, India talked of cooperation with Japan, Australia, and US. India also said, Modi said that Pacific area or Indo-Pacific, they should be it should be accessible to everyone, right? And after the summit, it was closely followed by Japan, Indian, and US Malabar exercise in Guam. Also, India, Japan, US, and Australia, they joined RIMPAC, which is an exercise, or it's called as Rim of the Pacific exercise. Also, India and US also announced that they will, from now, they will have or they will hold a 2+2 dialogue, which means dialogue between defense and foreign ministers of India and US. So this article, this open, suggests that we are cooperating. It's good that we are cooperating, but that cooperation should it should evolve into a strategy to counter the China in the Indo-Pacific. So first of all, which areas can be considered as Indo-Pacific? So Indo-Pacific could be, if this is Africa, suppose this is Africa, hypothetical map. So area from next to Africa till Australia and the islands in the Far East, these Tuvalu and Papua New Guinea and all these islands, till that area could be considered as Indo-Pacific area. If this is Australia, very bad in map, sorry. So area which is east of Africa till areas which are north to Australia and then the Far East, this area could be considered as an Indo-Pacific, and it consists of a lot of islands. This is an area which China is dominating from last few years. China is asserting itself in this area. It is considering itself as its backyard, and because of its bullying, a lot of countries in this area are very apprehensive with the intent and the design of China, and therefore US has been focusing a lot in this area, and US has even said that now most of our army and most of our navy would be stayed in this area to keep a check on the expansion and designs of the Chinese. So India, as you know, we consider Indian Ocean as our backyard, but China is even, entering our backyard and establishing close relations with our neighbors. So there are a lot of experts which say that we should do the same. If they are doing it in the Indian backyard, we should play a more active role in their own backyard, and for that we cannot do it independently. We would require the support and cooperation of the leading powers of this area, which includes Japan, Australia, and USA, which is not from the region but which is very close to it. So we need to have a block, and after keeping the block or writing the block, we can counter the Chinese in that region. So the article suggests that there are 3 ways in which we can do that. First is, we should focus on the link between Indo-China border and the East China Sea. See, as you know, China has a lot of, it is militarizing the Indo to China border. And we are really, the infrastructure in the Indian side of the border is really weak. So we could take help of Japan, US, and Australia in doing 2 things. First, We could help them, we could take their help in modernizing the infrastructure of our border with China. Secondly, we could cooperate with these countries to have a strong military presence in the East China Sea. And once we will have a strong, all these four countries have a strong military presence in the East China Sea, then China will be forced to keep maximum of its navy and army in that area, in that region, which would mean less threat of attack from China, because it would mean that there would be less number of military personals who would be governing the Indo-China border. So that will keep the expansionist designs of China in check. Because right now, majority of its members or its defense personnel are on India-China border, which makes the thing which makes India very apprehensive, because we have seen in 62 how they have entered, we have seen in Doklam how they have entered. So therefore, it is very, I mean, it is in India's interest if we divert some of their military personals to the East China Sea area, and that will require cooperation with these countries. Second step which India should, or these countries should take, is that we should develop the infrastructure in the countries of the region. So this would mean that, and this has actually been the main policy of these countries. So we have seen how in recently Bangladesh has chosen Martabali port, which will be developed by the Japanese. Also, Sri Lanka is developing Trincomalee port in which with Japanese assistance, and if that port will be developed, it would succeed in decreasing the importance of China's Hambantota port or Hambantota port. Also, India and Japan have launched Asia Africa growth corridor, in which both these countries, India and Japan, will try to bring economic development in the African region, and that will reduce the influence and dependence on China among these countries. So we should focus on developing the infrastructure so that these countries don't have to depend on China for doing that. And if we will kind of, because no country in that area wants China, because China is, it is not very, I mean, it has an expansionist kind of design. So but because they have no option, because no other country is doing that, they invite China to build the infrastructure. If we four countries can unite and supplement that, these countries will be more than welcome, or they will be more than happy to allow us to develop infrastructure in their areas. Next is, or third is, we should collaborate. India, US, China, and Japan should collaborate to increase our military presence and to boost the military of the countries of Southeast Asia. see all these countries of Southeast Asia, they are looking for these four countries to provide them adequate security, right? So because they are very very apprehensive with the Chinese designs. So that is why we are seeing India getting a lot of bases in these countries. So we have secured access to Dukmu port in Oman. We are also developing Agalega Island in Mauritius. Indian Navy has secured logistics facilities in Singapore, and also India has recently we have had logistic agreements with France, where we would be allowed to use their military bases in the Indo-Pacific region. India and Indonesia are also considering the development of Sabang port, which will be used for military uses, and it's very close to the Strait of Malacca. And having access to that port will help these countries to check the activities of Chinese submarines in the area. India is also developing Andaman and Nicobar Island because it's very close to the Strait of Malacca. Therefore, we want to use that Andaman Island to keep check on Chinese activities in that region. So this ends the third issue, which is countering China in the Indo Pacific. Let's move to the third next issue, which is demonetization failed to make India a less cash society. So, uh, one of the main objective of demonetization was that it will make India a less cash society. It will, make transform India towards more a country that will use more digital payments. But the recent data shows that cash in circulation as share of broad money, it decreased significantly during the demonetized month, but now its ratio is again going back to the pre-demonetization area. So what is currency in circulation? Currency in circulation is the total currency issued by RBI minus the currency which is replaced by RBI. And broad money is actually a measure of money supply. So it includes currency with the public for demand deposit in banks plus the time deposits in bank. So currency in circulation as a share of broad money is considered as what we call as how much cash people are using, and this data shows that we are again back to the pre-demonetization era. It reduced significantly during the demonetized months, and that was natural because 86% of the cash was taken out of the market, but now we are back to the same number. Let's move to the next issue, which is anti profiteering under GST. So as you know that GST has a provision of anti-profiteering, which is what it means that as and when the producer gets benefit after GST is implemented with reduced tax or increase in input credit, it will pass that to the consumer in the form of reduction in prices. So as and when the producer benefits from GST in the form of low tax and more input tax credit, he is mandatory. It's mandatory under this anti profiteering clause that he has to pass that to the consumer in the form of reduced prices. Now, for that, in India we have a anti profiteering authority. And this anti uh, profiteering authority, his job is to see that this provision is implemented in letter and spirit. So main job of this authority is to identify the persons who have not passed the benefit, to order reduction in prices, to repay the customer an amount which is not passed, and lastly cancellation of registration. So any person as a consumer, if I feel that the good which I am consuming, its tax has been reduced, still that the price of that good is not reduced, then I can approach to this anti-profiteering authority with a complaint, and then anti-profiteering authority, after looking and examining my case, can cancel the registration of that producer. It can cancel the registration, or it can advise him to pay me the compensation. So everything is good till now, but the problem is that there have been ambiguities in India's anti-profiteering provisions, and that is making the business people really apprehensive. So see, what is the ambiguities? First of all, the government has not released any regulations with respect to method of computing, or method of computation with respect to anti-profit. So nobody knows how to compute that. No, because government has not released any method for computing the or it is not prescribed any guidelines on how you have to compute the profiteering. So this is creating, I mean, the businesses don't know how to compute, they don't know how to calculate how much the price has reduced, how much we have benefited, and therefore how much price we have to reduce. Now because they don't know, so their intention is not ill, but anti-profiteering authority have been showcasing notices to a lot of these kind of companies. It has also kind of cancelled registration of lot of them. So their intent is that they are misinformed because they don't know the methodology of computation. But because of this, strong powers given to anti-profiteering authority, it is leading to kind of harassment of the business people. Second issue with this authority or with this provision is anything, because there is no clarity about computation, it is giving a lot of discretionary power to the tax officials. And as we have witnessed, as we experienced from last 60 years, last 70 years, that whenever you give discretionary power to the bureaucrats, it always leads to harassment of the business. So it goes against the provision of ease, or it goes against the philosophy of ease of doing business, which this government wants to promote. Second problem with this anti-provision thing is that even when the product or when the producer is facing losses, he still has to reduce price if after the implementation of GST his losses have reduced. So earlier, if he was earning 100 crores as loss, and after GST now he is facing loss of 50 crores, still he will have to reduce the price of that good, because after GST his loss has been reduced by half. Now this is absurd. I mean, when somebody is facing loss, the proper demand supply thing, proper economic theory says that he will have to increase the price, because without increasing the price his loss will continue. But according to this provision of anti-profiteering, even if he is facing loss, and if that loss is reduced, he still have to reduce the price of the good. Also, there has been no guideline issued on which provide details to the businesses how they can maintain proper documentation. So instead of promoting competition, this anti-profiteering authority and this provision is actually restricting the ease of doing business in India's economy. So what should be the way forward? So the way forward is that we should, first thing we should do is that the government should come out with clear cut guidelines and formula of computing anti-profiteering method. Second thing is that the authority should be little soft on their business people for at least next 1-2 years, because these business people are not very much aware of these things. So the fault on their part could be because of lack of knowledge about how to compute, or lack of knowledge about whether they have benefited or not. Therefore, we should first, these anti-tax or this anti-profiteering authority should first, or should look at the intent, and if prima facie the intention is not malified, then that company or that producer should just be let out or should be left out after giving them some warning. They should not be punished in the first 1 or 2 years. So this ends this topic. Let's move to the next issue, which is time to shift focus from land to water productivity in farm. Let's move to the next issue, which is the NABARD's report. And so NABARD has recently released a report which is named as Water Productivity Mapping of Major Indian Crops. And this report is a part of the research project of ICRIAR. And this report has said that India should focus, or our focus should be on increasing water productivity in agriculture. See, since independence, we are obsessed with land productivity. We want land to be made more productive so that we can have more crops per hectare. And that obsession with land productivity means that we are kind of providing subsidies of power, of water. We are also using a lot of fertilizers, and this has led to shortage of water in many areas in India. So we have areas like Punjab, areas like Maharashtra, where they are growing sugarcane and rice, and both sugarcane and rice are water intensive crops. And being water intensive crops in an area which are considered arid, Punjab is part of arid area, arid zone. When you are kind of providing almost free water, then it is leading to over exploitation of groundwater, and over exploitation of groundwater has led to what we call as shifting down of the water table. So this report has highlighted, and it took actually 10 crops: rice, wheat, maize, red gram, chickpea, sugarcane, cotton, groundnut, rapeseed, mustard, and potato. And it said that Indian agriculture uses 80% of country's water resources. Therefore, if you want to do anything for the water, we will have to ensure that in agriculture we focus on the water productivity of the crops. So the major observations of the report is that there has been a major differences between land and water productivity in rice and sugarcane. So what do we mean by with land productivity? We mean that how much in a hectare of land, how much of the sugarcane or rice can be produced. When we talk of water productivity measures how much water is required for, or how much how much water is required to produce a kind of a crop, same kind of a crop. So it says that Punjab has the highest land productivity of rice. But its water productivity is very low because it only produces 0.22 kg of rice for every meter cubic of irrigation water. It produces just 0.22 kg rice for every cubic meter of irrigation water. And when we kind of compared it with Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, they produce 0.75 kg and 0.68 kg for same kind of, or for every cubic meter of irrigation water. Which means that the water productivity of Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh are very, very good, but their land productivity is low because they hardly have any irrigation facilities. So this report therefore says that from now on we should focus, the cropping pattern should be according to the resources of the water. So areas which are arid, we should ensure that the crops they are producing are those crops which don't require much water, and the areas which have high rainfall, in those areas we should produce this water intensive crops like rice and sugarcane. And second thing which the report recommends is that we give subsidies, of power, of water, which is leading to this misuse. Therefore, instead of these subsidy, on third is MSP. We are providing MSP for rice and wheat, which is motivating people to grow it. So it says that instead of these subsidies, we should provide farmer as an income on per hectare basis. So when we provide the farmer with income based on per hectare basis, then we will leave this pricing of water and everything on market. So therefore it recommends this step for the water conservation. Let's move to the next step, next topic, which is National Health Protection Scheme flawed. IMA says that. IMA is Indian Medical Association. See, first of all, what does National Health Protection Scheme do? It will provide 5 lakh rupees of insurance to every family per year. So any family can go to these hospitals who are registered under the scheme, and then they can, for 5 lakhs, the insurance company will bear the burden. Central government will bear the burden of most of the premium. State government will bear the less number of premium. I mean, it will bear the burden of less amount of premium. So problem with this scheme is that what the IMA has, that IMA says that the rates which are mentioned of each facility. So this rate is known as package rates, which means how much is the cost of heart surgery, which means how much the hospitals receive if they admit these poor people, and if they treat them for heart surgery, how much will the insurance company provide them as compensation for any other thing like delivering baby in hospital, or for cesarean surgery, or for any other treatment like cancer treatment, anything. The rates which are provided, these are known as package rates. So let's understand that with an example. Suppose there is X hospital, right? So under the scheme, how will I kind of function? So I am a poor person. I will go to X hospital, and this X hospital is under this NHS scheme. So you can only go to those hospitals which have said that yes, we want to be part of this NHPS scheme, National Health Protection Scheme. So you go to NHPS scheme. Now government has given these hospital some rates, that for cesarean surgery we will provide you 9,000 rupees. For stunt and everything, for heart we will provide 30,000. So government has already prefixed rates for it has already prefixed rates for NHPS, that how much compensation, because see, when you go to that hospital you don't have to pay anything. For you it's free. It will be insurance company who will pay on your behalf to that hospital. Right. Now, what these IMA is saying, that the rate which the government has fixed for providing all these facilities or all these treatment is very, very less. And it says that some rates are 30% of the market rates. Which means if suppose the hospital gets 1 lakh rupees for a treatment, it will just get 30,000 from the insurance company for treating the patient under the NHPS scheme. Now these hospitals are saying, or this IMA is saying, that this will mean that no big hospital will be, or no big hospital will join this NHPS scheme. And already the 5 biggest hospitals in India have declined to join the NHPS scheme, which would mean that only the inferior kind of hospitals will be joining the NHPS scheme. And these inferior hospitals would mean that the treatment would suffer, or we will provide, or the government will provide substandard quality to the poor people, because all these Fortes and Vedantas and all these Apollos, they will be outside this scheme. They will say, no, we will not be joining the scheme because you are paying us so less. Right. So all these small nursing homes and these third grade hospitals, they will be joining the scheme. And once they will be joining the scheme, the treatment in these hospitals are also of third grade quality. So that is why IMA has suggested that the price or the package rates of the treatments should be at least competitive. It should be realistic, so that these big hospitals join the NHPS scheme and we can provide a good quality treatment to the poor people. Second thing which this NHPS or this IMA has said, that instead of using an insurance model, instead of having a third party thing, why don't government directly compensate the hospitals? So he said that government should directly pay the hospitals, because they say that insurance people, they appropriate or they pilferage 40% of the total budget in all other schemes. And if the government will directly provide compensation to hospital for its treatment to the poor people, this 40% would be saved. Third thing which IMA has said, that government should also focus on improving the public health facilities, government hospitals. It is saying that government hospitals will ultimately, it will be more cost effective than this insurance model. So third thing which IMA has said, that government should focus on improving the qualities of the government hospital. Let's move to the next topic, which is skill development of the youth. It was an op-ed in the Live Mint. It's a really good op-ed, so I thought it's good to explain to you. So India, as you know, we are witnessing demographic dividend. Demographic dividend is a situation where, or it's a phase in the population theory, when the working age population or the share of working age population in the total population increases, which means we have less number of dependent people. So usually the child between the age of 0 to 15 and adults above 60 are considered as dependent population, those who are not productive, those who are burden on the other people. And the people between 15 to 58 and 59 are considered as the working age people. And therefore, in India's case, that number has been increasing a lot. And therefore, because of this demographic dividend, many experts have said that we can add a few percentage to our growth every year, right? Because we have more people who are working, we have less people who are dependent. However, our demographic dividend will turn into a demographic disaster if we don't employ these working age people. And that is what is happening. We are not creating enough jobs. There is rise in the unemployment. According to the ILO, the number of people who are unemployed in 2018 is most likelihood would be higher than the number in 2017. So how can we, so what is the, what is the skill development? How could you increase the employability of the youth? The one way is to provide them with skills. Well, as we know that the NASCOM data show that only 15% or 20% of India's engineers are employable because they hardly have any skills. So only way to make these unemployed youth employed is by providing them skills. And in case of India, what kind of infrastructure do we have in India? So in India, government, civil society organization, market, industrial companies, not so profit or for profit organization, all of them are involved in the process of skilling people. And in India, we have a Ministry of Skill Development and we have a Pradhan Mantri Kausal Vikas Yojana for skill development. So in India right now there are 4 models of skill development, or 4 models which are supporting employability of youth in India. First model is a self-employment model where you train the youth in a certain skills, and after acquiring that skills he start his own enterprise and he become micro entrepreneur, or after that medium entrepreneur. Second model which is functioning in India is employer-led model, where the employer trains the in-house employees, and after he gets a training, he kind of inducts him into his organization. Third model is placement-led model, where you provide the individual with skills, or where you provide the individuals with skills and after that you ensure that he gets a job. And last model is the market linkage model, in which a person who is already a self entrepreneur, his skills are improved so that he does his business profitably. Now, what is the cause of increasing unemployment in India? According to this OPED, the main cause is mismatch in demand and supply. So this mismatch is because the skills, the aspirations of the youth and the skills the youths have been provided with is different from the skills which the employers want. So if suppose he is trained in making VCR or repairing VCR now, and nobody uses VCR, so after the gaining skill, he would be unemployed because nobody in the industry would want his redundant VCR skills, and that is what is happening. Second thing is the reason why we are is that many of these industrial organizations, they don't take seriously these skill degrees because there is no standardization of courses, there is no uniformity. Therefore, they are, even when you are skilled, the industry will not be interested in you. So how can we provide solution to this problem? So first solution to this problem is improving the skill. The skill development course should be improved. To ensure that the kind of skill training we are providing is in accordance with the need of the market. Second thing which we should focus when we talk of self-employment. So in self-employment training program, we should first map that these are the areas for which the product is, or for these kind of goods or for these services, there is great demand in the market. And based on this assessment, our self-employment training model should be based. Thirdly, there is need for greater PPP. There is need for, because government alone cannot train the people, so there is need for PPP. Fourthly, we should give focus on employer-led skilling programs. So in India's case, only 36% of India's organized sector firm conduct in-firm training. So we should focus on increasing in-firm training. How can we do that? We could provide them with incentives. First thing we can do is that the government can reimburse the expenditure which these companies face on training its in-house employees. First thing is that. Second thing is that it can give some tax benefits. So those companies where 100% of the employees have undergone in-firm training, they could be exempted, or their tax burdens could be reduced. All of them will incentivize them to skill their employees. Next thing which we can do is, or next important step which we can take to improve the skill program, is that NSSO should do a survey every year, every 5 years, where in that survey it should ensure, or it should collect data on skill providers and skill gaps. So based on that data, government, it will lead to what we call as evidence-based decision making. Evidence-based decision making is a new way in the public policy scenario, where you first see the data. Based on the data, you make the policy. If suppose a scheme has been failing, it has not been giving appropriate output, and year after year you are spending, you are putting money in that scheme. That will be a inefficient way of the decision making. So new type of decision making has emerged, which is known as evidence based decision making, where you use the data which is provided by private sector and the public sector. Based on the data, you kind of evaluate your schemes, that okay, you have 100 scheme, 60 are doing well, they are having some impact, 20 are doing average, and rest 20 are doing worse, they are not doing anything. So what you can do is that from next year you can provide more money in this 60, or you can revamp those last 20 which are not doing well. This is based, everything is based on data, right? So this kind of decision making is what we require. And by if NSSO will provide data on skill provider and skill gaps, which will mean how much there's a skill gap in a particular industry, based on that, government and the this industry would be in a better position to design a skill development program. Let's move to the last topic of the day, which is Commerce Ministry. So, last topic for the mains, which is Commerce Ministry sets a panel to make SEZ policy compatible with the WTO rules. Commerce Ministry has set up a panel to make SEZ policy of India compatible with the WTO rules. So, as you know that US has been taking India again and again to WTO with the fact that India, in its export policy or its foreign trade policy, is in violation of the rules and regulations of WTO. Therefore, it wants India to stop that. So, India, as we know, took India for this solar power thing. Now, recently, it has taken India. And it has challenged India's entire export subsidy in the following schemes. So MEIS scheme, SEIS schemes, special economic zones, export promotion capital goods scheme, duty free imports program for exporters. All these schemes have been challenged by US in the WTO. Therefore, the government of India, in order to ensure that our SEZ regime is compatible to the rules of WTO, it has announced, or it has set up a panel under Baba Kalyani, who is the chairman of Bharat Forge, and this panel will look into India's SEZ regime, and it will give the recommendation on how to make that, or how to make India's SEZ policy compatible with the WTO rules. So let's move to the prelims issues of the day. No, we have one more issue left after the prelim. So cross-border insolvency, government has came up with draft rules. So, see, there was a problem in the Bankruptcy Code of India that we did not have any rules or any regulations or any matter in that IBC code which dealt with cross-border insolvency. Cross-border insolvency means, like, if suppose Malia has ran away or Nirav Modi has ran away, right? And both these people have a lot of assets in across the world. Malia has a five-star lodge in South Africa. He has a mansion in UK, US, in Malaysia, everywhere. Same goes with Nirav Modi. He has stores all across the world. Now, since India did not had any provision with respect to cross-border insolvency, any kind of company which went bankrupt, lenders can only take, I mean, lenders can only appropriate his assets in India. Lenders cannot touch his assets across the border, right? And that is why people like Malia and Modi have no problem, because they have so many assets outside India that they said, okay, you can take all our assets in India, but we still have a lot of assets outside India. So that is why, to solve this problem, government has came up with draft amendments on for cross-border insolvency in the IBC. So how will this work? So this will work that this cross insolvency law will recognize that one country has to proceed with the main insolvency case while the other with the supplementary case, depending on the location of defaulter's asset. So in this case, there will be, if this thing will be passed, if any foreign kind of company has any asset in India and that foreign company goes bankrupt, then India will help that country to dispose of its asset in India. Same will go with India. If there's an Indian businessman who ran away to, or if there's any, not Indian businessman, any business, any company which ran away and which has most of the assets outside India, those countries will cooperate with India in disposing of the property. So what will be its benefits? This will be this would create more predictability, and it would do more ease of doing business, and it would also incentivize the multinationals to invest in India. So this ends this issue, mains issue. Now we will discuss with prelims issues. So first issue is that India's proposed Assumption Island deal is cancelled. Actually, I should have included that in the mains issue, but okay, you can read, because this is more of a core mains topic. This is in pre also, because they are asking for locations in the exam. So they are, that is why maybe I have introduced it in the prelims, because they are asking, which island is there or which thing is there. And that is why this island, Assumption Island, holds importance for your pre-exam. So let's see where is the location of this island. So suppose this is India. Here is Maldives. Here is Seychelles. And just near the Seychelles, just near to the coast of Africa, we have Assumption Island. So this Assumption Island is under the control of Seychelles. And when Modi went to Seychelles in 2015, they did a draft deal under which India will develop this Assumption Island, and some of our military personals will also be staying there to monitor the area. So India was, that deal was very important for India, because having a base that's close to Africa and that's close to the the area where we have piracy. So India thought, if we'll have base here, we could check the piracy and we could check the increasing Chinese activities in the region. So that is why that this port was, or this island was very important for India's strategic interest. Plus, this was also one of the part of Sagar, which was India's response to China's maritime Silk Route. But it was this deal was cancelled because in Seychelles, the opposition party raised the demand that once you give this island to India as a base, it would violate the sovereignty of Seychelles. Therefore there was a lot of protests in Seychelles going on, and under pressure from opposition, the ruling party cancelled this deal with India. Let's move to the next topic, which is database on unorganized worker. So, 2008 Act, Unorganized Workers Social Security Act, had mandated that every unorganized worker in India will be registered, and there will be a special smart card that will be issued to him. But 10 years down the line, nothing like this happened. So government finally it has started to create a national database, an Aadhaar seeded identification number system for the people, or for the workers working in the unorganized sector. After identification, government will directly transfer benefits and the welfare things to these workers. So Ministry of Labor has been given responsibility for the designing and running this, and this will be called as UWIN, which is Unorganized Workers Identification Number. This will be a 10-digit number which will be provided to every worker, and it will include detail of its family, its nuclear family and its extended family. And states will be given responsibility for identifying the workers, and state will use SECC data of 2011 to identify the workers. India has recently also launched its first national healthcare facility registry. So, what do we mean by the registry? Registry is, there will be a central data which will be there, and that data and that central kind of database would mention all the facilities of health care in urban areas, rural areas, everywhere, primary, tertiary, secondary, all kinds of facilities which are there in India, in every part of India. So, and also which of them are private, which of them are public, all this information will be provided under this registry. So the main objective of this registry is to create a reliable and unified registry of country's healthcare resources, showing the distribution pattern of health facilities and services between cities and the urban areas. So ISRO is also a partner in this collection. And how will this benefit? See, it will also, as I have discussed earlier, it will give boost to evidence-based policy making. Once the government will have data, it will get to know which areas have sufficient health facilities, which areas don't have sufficient, in which states the urban area or the rural areas need more focus, which district need much focus, which block need what focus. It can go till the micro level, and based on that micro level, planning could be done. So this is the main benefit of this registry. States will get to know, okay, or even not just state, districts will get to know that these blocks in my district have very less hospitals, and therefore we should focus on opening more healthcare facilities in these blocks. So it will give boost to what we call as decentralized planning. Also, it will help the government to see how much improvement hospital has led to health outcomes. So it will see how well its policies are functioning. If the if creation of health hospital has led to serious reduction in the number of people who are sick or the number of diseases, it means it's an achievement. So it will monitor all these things using this registry. Let's move to the next issue, which is US pulls out of the United Nations Human Rights Council. So, the United Nations Human Rights Council is a body established by the UN General Assembly in 2006. Its headquarters is in Geneva. It has 47 members who are elected by the members of the UN General Assembly, and it talks of it raises the issue of human rights violation which takes place anywhere across the world. Now, why is US left? Because as we know, Trump is following the approach of America first, and since it is following the kind of policy of America first, therefore it feels that its interests are not being protected in UN Human Rights Council, because UN Human Rights Council is harsh on Israel. Every year, US in the Human Rights Council meeting, the issue of Israel's violation of human rights is discussed. And Israel being the very, very close ally of US is antagonized by the fact that UN Human Rights Council is focusing only on Israel's human rights violation, ignoring China's and other countries. Therefore, to give a strong message as a step towards, as a step of solidarity towards Israel, US has moved out of United Nations Human Rights Council. Next issue is that government has released National Health Profile for 2018. National Health Profile National Health Profile is released by government every year. It is released by CBHI, Central Bureau of Health Intelligence, and the focus of this program is on ensuring that its main focus is on ensuring that how much that country has improved in last 1 year. So this year the health profile shows that we are spending is very less. First highlight of this report is so only 1.3% of total expenditure we do it on health, which is which is much less than which is being done across the world. Average is 6%, and countries like Sweden spend 9% of their GDP on that. Next we have is that there is the one doctor which serves population is 11,000 in India. These stats you can quote in your paper and that will give boost to your answers. While the UN recommends 1 to 1100, in India's case it's 1 to 11,000, which is 10 times more than what is recommended by the UN. Third fact which this profile came out with is that the rupees 3 is spent on average Indians healthcare. Fourth fact which came out this year is that India has made a remarkable progress in IMR and MMR. So India's IMR is 34. It was somewhere around 74 2 decades back. And in case of MMR, India's MMR has also reduced to 167. However, it says that female foeticide is still a major problem, and that means that there is lax implementation of the sex selective law. One more thing which it highlighted is that rabies has remained the most lethal disease. Lethal means there's a maximum chances of you dying. Let's move to the next scheme, which is Parivartan scheme. Government is planning Parivartan scheme for the power sector. So Parivartan scheme is launched because see there's a problem in the power sector. A lot of power sector projects are stuck, and the reason why they are stuck is because of three reasons. Firstly, they don't have they are not finding any power purchase agreement, which means they are not getting any customers who can buy the power which they have produced or they will be producing. Second thing is there is shortage of fuel, and third thing is that there is paucity of fund. So these are the three reasons why the many of the power plant projects are stalled or they are stuck. So how will this, how does government plans to do things? The government is trying to create asset management companies. These asset management companies will be financed by these financial institutions, And what it will do is that it will buy these power projects which are stalled, and after buying, what it will do is that it will have 51% share, and the lenders, the people who have given loan to this power project, their debt would be converted into equity. So these lenders will have 49% share in that company. For managing that company, and after taking hold of this power plant project, these asset management companies will tell the NTPC to join and to ensure that that company is functioning. An asset management company will charge interest for the, or it will charge some commission for doing all this, right? So this is how it will work. These tall PPP projects will be bought by these AMCs. The lenders of that company, their debt would be converted into equity. Once that will be done, AMC will tell the NTPC that you kind of come and start production here. And once the production will be started, that PPP or that power plant project would be started. It would no longer remain stalled. Next is Mongolia launches construction of first oil refinery with India's aid. So India, when Modi went to Mongolia, we gave loan to Mongolia, and by using that loan, Mongolia has established, or it is started the construction of its oil refinery, because till now Mongolia used to import all the oil from Russia. Now with this oil refinery, it will no longer be dependent on Russia to meet its oil needs. This will also be a bilateral thing, that it will give hold to India in that region. Next is there is this think tank called Scotch, and Scotch has given Ministry of Women and Child Development as award for best performing social sector ministry. Next is recently Yoga Day was celebrated. All you have to remember for prelims is when it was started and how the UN has accepted it as an thing. Next is Prime Minister's maternity scheme benefits 23 lakhs people. So Prime Minister's maternity scheme was named as, the name of the scheme is Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana. It was technically just like Indira Gandhi Matritva Yojana. It was almost the same, only the name was changed. So this scheme was implemented to give cash to the pregnant and lactating women. So the cash was given in 3 installments. Firstly, you will get 1000 rupees if you register yourself in the Anganwadi center that you are pregnant. Then you get 2000 rupees when you, after 6 months after pregnancy, when you had your postnatal checkup and everything. And last installment would be given once you ensure that your child has been given all the immunization. Right, so this is actually part of national food security scheme also. So this scheme was not functioning well. I mean, till this year only 2% of the target was met. Recently the news has come that finally the government has been successful in providing kind of cash incentive to 23 lakh people. And the reason of this backlog was that many states were not interested in joining that scheme because they have a better scheme in their own state. But now all states have came to board, and we are seeing the implementation of the scheme. Next is governor rule imposed in J&K. So what is important for prelims is that difference between governor rule and the president rule. So in all other states, where whenever a government loses majority or when there is some problem, I mean, there's a situation in which the government cannot be run according to the constitutional standards, president rule is imposed, right? But in case of J&K has its own constitution also. So in case of J&K, in the first situation, governor rule is imposed, and it is imposed for 6 months. And 6 months, the governor is given power to make things under or to put things under the control. After 6 months, when there is a need that things are still not under control, only after 6 months, president rule is imposed. Right? This is the difference between governor rule and the president rule. Next is Women Wizard Rule Tech program has been launched by NASCOM. So this Women Wizard Rule Tech program is launched by NASCOM to increase the number of women in senior levels in IT industry. So under this program, it will provide these women techies with core technologies like IT enabled services, product and research and development, BPM, etc. And the last issue for prelims is that government launches National Digital Library of India. So this National Digital Library has been launched by Ministry of HRD, and what it will do is that it will create a repository where all the books or the journals, all the kinds of textbooks, videos, audio books, all of them will be kept, and it will be accessible to people free of cost. So idea is to increase the knowledge domain in the society. I have missed one main topic. I will continue that now. Yes. So there is a new report by National Health Mission which says that women bear uneven burden of family planning through sterilization. This is very important because it is related to topic in GS paper 1, which is population and related issues. It is also related to the topic of the woman itself. So, according to the NHM report, 93% of sterilization is done by the women. So, the people who get sterilization, who go for sterilization, 93% of them are women. Only 7% are males. The good thing is that this number has reduced from 98% a few years back, but still 93% is a great number. It's a big number because when we compare vasectomy with a tubectomy, so the male sterilization process is called as vasectomy and the female is called as tubectomy. Scientifically, it is proved that vasectomy is less injurious to health. It is less dangerous. It is less inconvenience. Female sterilization is more inconvenience. Even after that, in India's case, why do still 93%? Why do the people who go for sterilization, 93% of them are women? Why is that thing prevalent in India? Well, this is because of number of reasons. First reason is misconception and patriarchy. See, the problem is that because of this women going for this sterilization, and sometimes it's risky. We have seen incidences few years back in Chhattisgarh where you had number of women who kind of died. So it is more risky. So why do we still have reasons? First is misconception and patriarchy. So there is misconception in India that if a male will go for sterilization, he will lose his sexual prowess. Now, this is a kind of a myth which is being circulated in India, especially in the rural India. That is why male don't prefer to go for sterilization. Also, during that emergency program when there was forced sterilization, it was generally the men which were kind of targeted. Therefore, there is this fear which is being developed among men that it is going for male sterilization is dangerous. Third reason why we have prevalence of female sterilization is because this patriarchy. You don't do it yourself. You are the boss of the home, so you send your wife that you do it. I won't do it. I will not feel that pain. I will not want that pain. So you go it. You kind of do it. So the patriarchy is also one of the reason why we have this prevalence of female fertilization or sterilization. Second reason is lack of facilities. So there are very few personals who are doing there are very few villages which have camps which provide male sterilization facility. So the facilities for male sterilization is inadequate. Even the government has not been focusing on that. It has been kind of focusing only on female sterilization. Third reason is there is lack of trained male worker. See, in case of the women, we have ASHA workers. These ASHA workers try to convince the females that you should go for family planning. the benefits of family planning, etc. But in case of male, we don't have. The ASHA workers are not, they don't deal with male workers because, because of the societal norms that men and women would be, they will keep distance from each other. So therefore, this is the third reason why we have this. So what is the way forward? First way forward is that we should increase the facilities with respect to male sterilization. Second is creating awareness through nataks, radio, TV, etc. Thirdly, creating a dedicated workforce of male health workers. This ends the topics for this week. We will meet next week.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update from Civil State.